You've probably picked up by this point that IRR is our go-to measure of returns in private equity. But one thing I do want to cover is some critiques out there of IRR. One critique is that while receiving cash earlier boosts our returns, one thing IRR does not capture is reinvestment risk. So a popular question Sam Zell, the legendary real estate investor, often asks MBA students is, would you rather have an investment with a 20% IRR over a 10-year time horizon or one with a 25% IRR over a 5-year time horizon? Sam's answer would actually be the former case of 20% over 10 years. See, in his logic, in the 25% case, once you get your money out, you then have to go through the effort of reallocating it to a new investment, and who's to say you can find another investment yielding a return as high as 25%? Furthermore, it takes time to allocate capital, and what if you end up sitting on cash for longer than you expected? If you generated 25% for the first 5 years, but then were in all cash for the next 5 years, your 10-year rate of return would be considerably lower than if you picked the 20% investment generating a consistent return over 10 years. Another way of framing this debate is the IRR versus multiple of money argument. To give an example, let's say you get a return of 20%, or 26%, my apologies, in 3 years. This would imply a multiple of money of 2 times. But if we were then just to sit on cash for 2 more years, at our 5-year time horizon, our IRR would really be more like 15%. Now, let's contrast this with a case where we get 25% now in 5 years, but it was generated in 5. It took a bit longer, it wasn't in 3. We can see here that while our return is slightly lower than the 26%, this implies a quite significantly higher multiple of money of 3 times. So this is the critique of IRR, that comparing investments side by side and simply selecting the one with the higher return doesn't capture the full picture and may not deliver the best long-term results. Many investors like to evaluate both IRR and multiple of money to capture the bigger picture when assessing multiple investments. Put another way, earning a quick buck isn't always the best strategy if you're trying to think as a long-term investor and concerned with reinvestment risk. One other critique is that IRR captures returns but not risk. Thinking back to our example of the Sharpe ratio in less than 2.5, again, just comparing 2 investments side by side and picking the higher returning one doesn't capture the full picture. This is the return our model tells us, but we've got to remember that this is a model of reality, not reality itself. So the real result could turn out to be quite divergent from what our model predicted. For example, a software business with recurring revenue may be much more stable and less risky than a retail investment. So even if the retail business were to generate a higher anticipated return, there could be higher risk that we do not actually achieve that return. This is the critique of IRR. It's that it doesn't really account for this risk, and it is, again, difficult to do an apples-to-apples comparison of investment opportunities by only evaluating their internal rates of return.